Okay, so what's the real story of doing service design in-house? Is it a great opportunity to drive meaningful change or a constant navigation of challenges? We are exploring the realities in this special series. The series is all about stepping away from the textbooks and into the actual lives of the professionals who are making services better from within the organizations that are delivering them. We want to learn from their on-ground experience and the lessons they've had to learn the hard way. Hi, and welcome back to the Service Design Show. If you are a regular listener, you know that we try to bring you insights from the leading voices and pioneers in service design. And that's definitely not changing. But alongside that, I also want to shine a light on the practitioners who are hands-on, doing the day-to-day work of improving the services we all use. These are the professionals with a treasure trove of practical wisdom who understand the gap between theory and what it takes to make things happen in the real world. Because let's be honest, while books and courses are valuable, the most valuable lessons often come from being right there in the thick of it. So this conversation is the second in our monthly deep dives into the world of in-house service design. And today we have two guests who are living this reality every day, Linn Jansson and James Field. Both are experienced professionals and valued members of my Circle community, where they recently hosted a session. If you are not familiar with the Circle, it's our dedicated community for in-house service design leaders and those who are on that path. It started a few years back when I recognized that working in-house in service design can sometimes feel like a solo mission. It can be tough to find peers who truly get the unique challenges and can offer support and share different perspectives. Our goal with the Circle is simple: to be that supportive team, a collective of service design allies. If the Circle sparks your interest and you want to find out more, just head over to servicedesignshow.com/circle and you'll also find the link in the show notes. So as mentioned in this episode, we'll hear from Linn and James and we'll dive into their unique paths into service design, unpack some of the key takeaways from the community sessions they recently led, and even bust a few myths about what it means to be an in-house service design professional. So if you want to get some behind-the-scenes stories and the kind of nitty-gritty details that you don't often hear, then you're in the right place. My name is Mark Fontijn, and you are listening to the Service Design Show. Welcome to the show, James and Linn.
Thank you.
Hello.
Good to have you back. James, I don't know which appearance it is for you on the show. Do you recall how often have we had a chat?
I've got to think it must be at least 3. Maybe this is the 4th time.
Nice. We'll look it up. And Linn, you're having sort of the red carpet premiere today.
Very much so. So I'm happy
How
to
do
be
you
in the
feel?
company of, I feel great, and especially being in company of James that has so much experience. So I can totally lean on him.
Nice. Now, I think you're being humble and modest. We are going to dig a little bit deeper into your journeys of service design. We're going to talk a little bit about the topics that you explored in the Circle community with your in-house service design peers, and we'll maybe do some myth busting and demystify in-house service design a bit more. A lot on the menu. We'll see where this goes. I'm really excited. This is sort of the second episode in the reboot of this series. Last month, we had Nicole and Shelby for the episode. Now it's you two. And the way we tend to kick off these conversations is by first trying to better understand your journeys. And I would love to start with you, Linn. Could you share a little bit more about how you got into service design? Because I know that you have a very interesting path.
Yeah, I guess it's interesting. I think it's if you look down my CV on LinkedIn, it's going to be tricky. It's a long list of different jobs, but it comes for a reason. I played basketball for a long time, so I was always trying to have the combination of being able to continue to play and then also have a job that's flexible enough. But a lot of service-oriented jobs, basically, in my backtrack. And then I finally quit basketball and realized I wanted to go to school. So I ended up at a school called Hyper Island, which is fairly known. And then I came out of there, and I didn't call myself a service designer at first, but doing some agency work, I sort of landed into that role. So that's what I am today, not at an agency anymore, but a service designer in-house at an insurance company somewhere in the Nordics.
Cool. Basketball, really interesting. How long ago did you stop, or are you still actively playing?
No, I stopped. I stopped. What is it? It's almost 10 years now.
Oh wow!
But it's
okay.
Yeah. So, but it lasted into my 30s. So I'm proud of that at least.
Nice, nice. James, did you play professional sports?
No, unfortunately, I didn't. I wish I had, but no, I did not. I do have a sports connection, though. I did start off my career at Reebok, the sportswear company, and gone from there through another sportswear company, Adidas, and tried every other type of design in between before landing in service design eventually.
It's been a while since you've had an quote-unquote official service design job title. You tend to lean away from that, right?
Yeah, I guess I deliberately, in some respect, try not to talk about service design, but also, I go with the flow wherever it's needed, and then I apply service design in my roles. That's how I feel like I take that on.
So just to give an example, like I know that you just recently moved into a new role. What is your job title in this case, for instance?
Yeah, so I'm managing journey management and discovery research at Autodesk. So that's a new role. So now we're really focused on bringing journey management to service design and discovery research.
Well, congrats on the new role and journey management. I don't know, I've heard that topic before. Seems to be a thing. James, I'm curious, having seen so many different roles and having been in this industry for a while, I'm curious, how do you define success? Because that can be quite abstract and challenging. Like, what is success for you?
For me, on a personal level, I always wanted to be a designer. So the fact that I'm a practicing designer and I'm doing design is a success. And then enabling other people to do that too is also a personal success. So I think if we're in the game, we're all doing design, we're bringing design to a bigger audience. Design's in the conversation. Design is present in these organizations and having its role driving some of the discussions and decisions that's happening. To me, that's a big marker of success for all of us.
And how do you, how was success sort of seen within your organizations? Like in the last role that you had, what was success?
Yeah, so I think in my previous organization, where I moved on from maybe 4 weeks ago at this point, I think success was, for our topic today, influencing other people's decisions. So, are we able to bring data, information, that customer perspective into the decision-making process and represent the group that I was with at the time, which was marketing, customer experience. Are we contributing to that organization, the goals, and I think that's it. Are we playing our part in that process?
Interesting. Linn, also, I'm curious from your perspective, you also have an interesting journey in the last months because you've been on maternity leave and just recently came back. Maybe it also feels like getting into a new role. But if you go back maybe like 2 or 3 years ago and think about how you defined success, what was that?
I think it's tricky. I think before it was more about how much we use the methodology. I think that's my inexperience as well. Like I was trying to convince everyone to use design thinking or, trying to move everyone to use that sort of problem solving methodology to get the customer perspective into that. So if I could get people on board on that, then I felt that I had some sort of success or impact. But I think it's changed. So if you ask me now with, I think it has to do, it resonates a lot what James saying. It's just like I move around, and when I hear that people have used like bits of customer insight or just reference to a conversation I had with them or something we did in a workshop or what have you, then that's success for me. Then I know that we're moving slowly, nudging people to sort of work with the customer perspective and just bringing that into the business. That's great.
That sounds. I can imagine that some people listening to this will feel that that's quite fuzzy and abstract. And is it, or do you have a more a more rational way to sort of see if you're on the right path, if you're making progress, or is it like your gut feeling?
I guess my work isn't necessarily measured in that way. Because it's a combination of the maturity of the company of using this sort of work. So it is fluffy. It's a lot of gut feeling. But I guess it's convincing a lot of people to have that gut feeling. That I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to put words on, but I know I'm making progress, but it's a lot of word of mouth, basically. Just it comes back to me.
So if you're sitting at the end of the year with your manager, with your boss, like what are they looking at and to indicate whether or not you've been performing up to par? Do you have a boss?
I have a boss. I do have a boss. I guess one, productivity measures, like the initiatives I make, but then it's also, in this big of an organization, it's also the rumors or the feedback from people that felt that it was valuable, to be provided this work and so forth.
Rumors? What do you mean with rumors?
No, just maybe it's the wrong word, like my maternity leave brain. No, but just the what people are talking about, like the chit chat, the water cooler chit chats about, we did this customer centricity work, or she provided this customer insights, and they did this research for us. It worked really well. They supported it in this process. I'm constantly enabling, so it's not.
Are you?
I guess, yeah.
Is this in the back of your mind when you work on a project that you need people to talk about it, not just do the work? Like, do you bake that into your process consciously?
I build the experience. I try to facilitate my work so that people will walk away with something valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if I'm working with someone in a process, or not necessarily just a workshop or anything like that, but I constantly think about learning and how I can create learnings for others. That's in the back of my head. That's how my brain works.
And the thing I'm curious about is if you are, quote unquote, measured by which stories and rumors are told within the organization, it would benefit you to also think about and facilitate the fact that people are able to articulate those lessons and share them. But are you doing that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I guess one day maybe the impact of like how we work with customer centricity, or whatever you want to put words on it, but we'll have better measurements, effects on the business and so forth, like initiatives we take. But where we're at right now, I don't think I control it. I just am, and I just do the work. But I do ensure that I create some sort of value to my stakeholders, or like, it sounds so lame, like everybody wants to actually deliver value, right? But it's like status, everybody says it. But I actually think about it really hard, because I try to really understand what they need, in a sense.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
James,
okay.
Does this make sense?
Well, let's bounce the challenge to James. So James, you're starting a new role. I don't know how many conversations you've had about how your performance will be measured at the end of the year, but like, are you consciously thinking about the messages the people you're working with will tell?
Yeah, I think that's hugely important. Yeah, so I agree with Linn, actually. I think the people that you engage with and interact with leaving with a very positive view of the value that you've brought, your contribution to the project. And I really picked up on what Linn was talking about with enabling. I think it's that. Have you enabled people to do their role, to succeed? Have you given other people agency that perhaps don't have that in the process? I think that's what people remember. That's what people take away, and that's what people talk about and really value when we come and join that process.
I'm curious if they do. So the reason I'm saying that is I've been in many projects, and for me, like, the project work is like years ago, but often we did great work. People were excited, but they weren't able to articulate the exact value, and they couldn't sort of spread their excitement maybe in the words that we would like them to use. Right? Does that make sense, James?
Yeah, that's definitely possible. But I think you've just had that overall good feeling, and what you want to hear is you want those referrals to come in. You want people knocking on your door, sending you that email, sending you that message saying, hey, I know you did a great workshop, or you helped someone with something, because people do talk. And that's, I think, a lot of where your kind of internal business comes from. And maybe that's like a difference with being in-house as well, is that people really do see you as part of the team.
Yeah. Is that also how you sort of see success? How many follow-up questions you get, how many referrals you get from within the organization?
That was definitely an explicit measure when we were early on in my previous organization, when we first brought service design in. Absolutely, yeah. We were measuring how many workshops, how many people were requesting help, how many times were we engaged. And we were really paying attention to those numbers. It was kind of like Linn was talking about, like that when we're trying to bring the process to people, that's definitely what we were paying attention to in the early days.
And now, can you share something about what will you be looking in your new role?
I'll first, if you don't mind, Mark, just hit on where I landed at the end
Sure.
of my previous role, which is to go from that very much like measuring engagements to measuring the enablement of initiatives and projects. So because of our involvement, was that initiative funded? Was it supported? Did it work well? Were people operating well together, collaborating effectively? That's kind of where we were. That's where we landed at the end.
But okay, let's double click for a second on that, because how do you actually know? Did you have ways to actually say that you were contributing to that? And if so,
Absolutely. How? Yeah. I think if you're then working at a leadership level or some executive level supporting those initiatives, they're very clearly able to say, yes, you contributed in this way. You helped me understand this, bring clarity to that, bring these people together. I wouldn't have thought of these things. You brought the research, you brought the storytelling. They're very aware, because you often have a small group of people who are trying to progress something and facing challenges along the way. So they can clearly see the value that you added.
Yeah, and you had to go to them to ask these questions, most likely, like debrief them. And is that... Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, you're having check-ins along the way, and at the end of the process, they're more than happy to kind of give credit, share that credit, and thank you. And that's the thing that I think that's the model that then they recommend to other peers in similar situations.
But I guess also just asking them the question, like, what would you miss if you wouldn't be involved in this project? Like, that's already a way to help them articulate the value, and it also helps you to sort of justify your presence, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's always good practice to circle back with people and get those sound bites that you can have of them talk about the great stuff you've done.
Yeah, and it's more than sound bites, I guess. Like it's your reason for being. If they aren't seeing the value that you're bringing, yeah. Cool. Linn, anything to add to this? What James just said?
No, it just resonates for me. Thanks for putting another set of words on what I was saying. So yeah,
I think it's really it's not a surprise, but this connects to and resonates with what we recently discussed and are exploring within the Circle community. So for everybody who's listening and not familiar with the Circle, this is a community exclusive to service design professionals working in-house within organizations across the globe. I think right now we have about 20 different countries represented. Industry-wise, it's really all over the place. We've got people from big tech, from automotive, from church organizations, charities. So quite a diverse bunch of people. We meet at least twice a month to talk it out, to have these water cooler conversations, but also our dinner table conversations, as we like to call them. And our dinner table conversations are hosted by people like you, Linn, and James. What's interesting to know is that James has been part of the circle since day one, prior to day one. He's a real OG, so James has seen the progress and evolution of the community. I think it's really interesting. At least I try to eat my own dog food and apply service design principles to the community. So it's evolving, it's changing, it's an ongoing prototype. And recently, in April of 2025, you hosted 2 dinner table sessions. And let's dive a little bit deeper into what you decided to put on the table for your fellow circle guests. What kind of food for thought we had. Linn, what did you put on the table for us?
I barely remember the title because it was so long.
I know, Service Design for Leaders. That was
exactly.
it. Yeah.
But I basically, so the topic that we had at hand was collaboration to work around. And that's one of my favorite topics. So I really wanted to contribute. And first I was thinking we were going to have a session of conflict, but it was already taken. So then I had to rethink. And then I wanted to share one of for me, one of the best tools that I have. And it's the IMGD model by Susan Wieland. It's Integrated Group Development. It sounds really fancy, but basically it's a lot of learnings about group development. And I use it all the time in different positions where I'm at as a service designer. Leadership, non-leadership, process lead, what have you. And so the purpose of my session was to sort of mirror, did the other service designers recognize themselves in this? And could I also sort of give a gift of this tool that I find very useful?
And what made you select this tool? Like, why did you go for this one? Framework,
because
method? Yeah.
I use it all the time.
What makes you so excited about it?
I think I built a career basically on it.
Okay, well, tell us more. Like, how did you build your career on it?
No, but for me, it supports the soft skill. And it basically, wherever I move as a service designer, I'm sometimes seen as the leader. So I have to like shape and support the group. Wherever I go, I need to create circumstances for collaboration. So if this is my work, then I also need to understand psychology behind group development, because just bringing people together in a room will not create that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, for me, it's understanding her work and her research just constantly supports me. So if I go into a room and it's a meeting and I'm just there, I can like sit and observe and see what's going on, where they're at. And then I understand parts that probably sometimes can be in the way of collaboration, or why aren't we getting anywhere with this? And yeah, it's a conflict stage. I don't care, it's a stage 2.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, so you're sort of projecting the model onto any group dynamic, any group that you're part of, and
all the time.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting. One of the things we often talk about is that service design is a lot about change management, but it's also, for a large part, about group dynamics, social behavior, and we don't really dig deep into that. And this is a model that you find really helpful, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, we'll get back into that in a minute. James, I wasn't part of your session because your dinner table sessions happen at 2 a.m. for me. You're actually leading the house, as we call it in the circle, together with Brad, who was recently on the Service Design Show as well. Pure coincidence. So you two are leading the group, but also members, and you have the opportunity to host a dinner table just like everybody else. Linn already mentioned we are in the season of collaboration and influence. This is our Q2 season. What did you put on the table for your fellow circlers?
So I took the other half of that and I went for influence rather than collaboration. That was my focus. So I brought a topic to the group around influencing our organization, and just a call out. What I really love about the circle sessions is you can, as a host, you can bring anything you want in any format you want. So I love that, Linn, you brought a tool to share and kind of get behind the scenes of the secrets that work for you. But I've done that a few times, but this time I brought provocation to everyone to have a discussion. I love it when we just dive in deep to topics. So yeah, I wanted to consider our influence beyond projects. So I feel like we often talk about how we're influencing projects, ultimately results, but I think there's a bigger picture influence that we have. So I wanted everyone to say, hey, look beyond the projects. What influence are you having on the organizations? What changes are you having in mindset, approach, the way that people interact and work together? And I wanted to kind of lift people up and look at that part of our role.
So what came up? Like, what kind of influence do we have?
I think it was great that everyone had a general realization that we are having a really positive impact on our stakeholders and our organizations, just in the way that they talk, the things that we consider, bringing people into conversations. I mean, just the way that we show up as designers is changing the way that people around us are working, and it's changing the conversations inside our organizations. And that's something that we don't necessarily realize sometimes or reflect on.
Or get paid for.
Or get paid for, yes.
And do you mean it's things like the fact that we tend to visualize or sketch ideas and in that way influence how others communicate?
Yeah.
Is that an example?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic example. Yeah, the visualization, the sketching, I think the storytelling that we bring is not to be overlooked. And there's a huge amount of alignment that comes with that. So alignment, massive value. You'd be surprised at the amount of people that kind of move forward with things and they're maybe scared to ask a question. They're not sure why we're doing things. We tend to bring those things to the front. Challenging assumptions as well is huge part of what we do.
In the conversations that you had with the group, was there anything that surprised you that came up?
I think overall we were surprised at the types of impact that we actually have. We kind of surprised ourselves. The cultural shifts, the cultural changes were a huge surprise for all of us. I think the one thing that surprised me, maybe not surprised, but was a reminder to me, is that also the organization influences us. So we can also turn things back on ourselves and say, well, how are we changing? Are we changing in a good way? We need to reflect on those things as well, that maybe the organization is influencing on us, and we need to push back against that, or at least be aware of it.
So are we getting getting more into the politics? And can you give an example that people state how the organization is influencing and maybe changing them?
I can give a personal example.
Sure, that would be great.
Yeah, the organization I was just at is a fantastic sales organization. I feel like I was really fortunate to work with some amazing salespeople who kind of grew up inside that organization and now take leadership roles. But it's that sales mindset that finds its way through everything that the company does, which was amazing as a service designer to learn some of those skills. But you can maybe tip too far to the other side, and you can perhaps maybe stray a little bit too far from some of the empathy, some of the consensus-driven decision-making. You can maybe be a bit too snappy, a bit too fast in your judgment, and maybe a little bit selling too hard, convincing a little bit too hard. Whereas, what we're great at is reflecting, listening, taking in the other sources and kind of bringing them together. So that's something that I was definitely aware of when we were talking, is that I think the sales has really elevated my career, but also challenged some of my design sensibilities.
I remember having a few conversations with design people who grew up within design and moved into leadership positions, and then within that leadership position they started to adopt the, let's call it the business attitude. That's not the right word, but the managerial attitude. And what they realized, a lot of them along the way, is like they lost the thing that got them there, that designerly approach, that design mindset, and that even if you're in a board meeting, you should still grab the Sharpie and the whiteboard and sketch things out. And I don't know, that we tend to forget that. And sometimes it's really important to have like a sounding board or somebody who sort of keeps you true to to your designerly self, right, James?
Yeah, I think we have to keep showing up as designers, but maybe we have to find the appropriate moments to amplify some of those characteristics and leave some of them behind at certain times, but just don't forget them. I think is really important.
Okay, thanks, Linn. When we were talking about Susan Wheeler's IMG model, framework, like you live and breathe this framework. How did it land with your fellow service design peers?
I think it was new for most of them, and a lot of people found it, even though they got like a super brief overview of it, I think they understood why I like it so much. And it landed really well. It's models and frameworks are not always the answer to everything, but it can support you in like putting words onto things that you're experiencing, or just, sort of give you some clarity and put things in perspective. And I think that's what it did. It seems like that, at least what I got from the conversation, that people, it's like, aha, yes, this is what I'm going through. Now I get it, Yeah.
What I liked about it, and tell me if you've felt the same, is within this group, we meet online, we sit on Miro, and we are a group, and there is a dynamic as well. And you explained some of the stages of how groups behave and where we're at. And I sort of realized that we're talking about ourselves in that session. Did you recognize that as well? And if so, what did you recognize?
Yeah, but it's very evident. I mean, I think our group has been sort of stable for a while, so at least we're getting to know each other slowly, but we only meet so often, so the process is quite slow, right? And we don't have we have some sort of common goal, so to speak, and we have a structure to work with. But for example, one of the examples from Susan Wheeler's framework, if a group is a stage one, it's not really a team yet, it's not collaborating. If a facilitator or leader asks a question, no one will like directly respond to it. It will be quite silent in the room. And then people will think, should I? Okay, I'll go. That's what's going on in people's mind. And that's exactly what happened. I asked something and it took a while before we sort of...
Well, it was quite a good reality check, because we could assume that this group already has built a lot of trust, that there are strong relationships, and to some sort of extent that might be the case, and people might just be humble and don't want to be extroverts. But at the same time, like if you look at a model like this and you sort of mirror the behavior that we are just observing, typical service design stuff, don't look at what people say, do look at what people do. And if people stay silent for a little bit too long, like those are pretty strong indications. I found that model really interesting. Yeah, like you said, it's just a model, but nevertheless can be super helpful.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what it is. It's helpful. Yeah.
How would you, knowing what you know about our group, for example, what would you, how do you think we could use this model as a group, as a community?
Over time, the trust building is important to get a bit below the surface, so to speak, because the more trust we feel, the more we can open up and actually have deeper discussions that then maybe give us more meaning in the long run. It sort of depends on the topic, of course. Some aspects of what we discuss doesn't sort of demand that sort of trust either. So then we're good to go. But I think for the conversations that we're having, and we're doing it in smaller groups and in bigger groups, I find often when we are in 2 or 3 in a setting, people are very open and there is a lot of trust there. So but trust building is always important. Never leave it out if you want some good effects.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting to look at group dynamics, understand how to read the room, how to manage isn't the right word, but like we often tend to say the organization is your design material, but it's also the group is you're designing sort of with the interactions with the people, with the dynamic, with the process. And when you realize that you can design with that or for that, then it becomes you sort of step away from it's not the victim. I'm looking for the good words right now, but like you're not a passive consumer of what's happening. You can actually intervene, and there are known and tested ways that can help you get quicker to where you need to be, if that makes sense. Cool.
Yeah.
So that was our season, and still is our season on collaboration and influence. I know that we'll be exploring, and we have explored in the other sessions, using comedy and improv to build influence, which was a great session as well, moving away from the classic Cialdini influencing and manipulating tactics, but instead using improv and comedy to build influence. It was a great session as well. And we also celebrated some of the wins that we have around collaboration, because you can really quickly fall into the fact that it's challenging to drive change within an organization, to sort of get people on your side, and you're often struggling and going against the grain. But sometimes things do work, and sometimes collaborations tend to result in very interesting projects. And we took a moment to celebrate that. So that was the other session. We'll continue in this season for at least 2 more months, and then we'll move into the next one. Cool. Thanks for sharing what was in your sessions. I hope this also paints the picture of what we explore together in the community. It's quite diverse. Now I want to go back to talking about in-house service design, because even though I do see more and more professionals going in-house, more and more organizations building in-house capability, it's still quite niche. It's still sometimes quite this mysterious and mystique thing. So let's dive into what is it actually like. And James, I would love to hear from you. When you talk to other professionals and you hear them speak and think about in-house service design, what is one of the biggest misconceptions that you see out there about it?
I'm not sure if it's a misconception. Let me try this though. I think what really always stands out connects so well to what we're talking about here: the amount of coordination around collaboration. So like Linn's been talking about, that collaboration team building doesn't happen on its own. It needs so much effort, attention, deliberate coordination, like I mentioned before, is really it. So I think talking about the percentage of time that you spend essentially on what you might call service design versus project management or journey management is an interesting one to pay attention to.
How would you gauge that in your previous role? How much time did you spend on coordination?
I mean, sometimes, honestly, it felt like maybe it was 80% coordination. It can get as
I was
extreme
expecting you
as
to say 100.
It can almost be that, honestly. Yeah, it can, if you find yourself becoming more of the project manager, and the more responsibility you take on, the more, in fact, almost the more direct responsibility connection you have to the ultimate results. In many respects, actually reduces the amount of service design that you do.
Where is this misconception coming from? And I know you said that it's not a misconception, but it feels like it's not common knowledge either.
I would think it comes from, you think, hey, I'm going in-house. There's an infrastructure in place. I have permission to do this work. There's a role that's being created for me. Hey, I'm gonna have time now to sit and think and work on these things. And what you don't realize is that you, or the people around you at least, have to make the space for that to happen. So it's not going to happen on its own. So that's it. You need to create those conditions.
Yeah, and I guess maybe we'll get to that later, but this is like the difference when you are in an agency or a consultancy where everything hopefully is already design oriented, like set up in order for you to succeed. When you are going into an organization that doesn't have a design heritage, expect that you'll need to do a lot of foundational work. And right.
Yeah, you're competing for space, I think, with everybody else when you're in-house.
What kind of space? What do you mean with space?
So, and this is a massive oversimplification, but when I was on the kind of the more agency side, you're being brought in for a reason, and people maybe have cleared that space for you because they know a project needs to happen, or they know that they have a very clear view of the amount of time and money that's being spent on this engagement. So often there's a bit more room, a bit more space for people to actually go and do this kind of work, and you have the focus and the attention. Whereas I think when you're in-house, you start to become part of the furniture. You're part of the process. Okay.
I know an anecdote from one of the other circle members was that in some of their projects in-house, they tend to put a price tag on their work as if they were a McKinsey or Accenture to mitigate what you're saying, that people will take it for granted and that you have to compete for space. Well, if you're bringing us in and you would have to pay the bill, like this would cost you $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, right? Sometimes it's successful.
Make yourself seen as a luxury.
Linn, from your perspective, what are maybe some of the, next to the coordination that James talked about, what are some of the challenges that you have seen and encountered in your work that you maybe didn't expect that you would encounter being in-house?
I think James mentioned it in the beginning, but he's like, I don't necessarily call it service design or however you framed it. And I think one of the challenges was that I thought that, I'm the service designer, hottest news in town. And it just made people even more confused. So I barely ever speak about service design anymore, even though that's my title. It's like, it's just, I guess it's also how the business is influencing me. It's like this, I need to sort of find language, and I need to sort of navigate in this area to actually do impact and do work. So I guess I didn't understand that to start with, that it was that it would take that much time from me. It's not a negative necessarily, but it takes a lot of time and work. Yeah.
Yeah, or somebody needs to tell you, and then you sort of need to accept that that's the case. I'm curious, Linn. We often, success leaves clues, and we learn a lot from success, but we probably learn even more from failure. Can you share a story about failure with us where you learned a really important and hard lesson of maybe being in-house?
Initially, I felt super frustrated being in-house because I didn't know how to navigate. So I would, whenever we had like, I think it's bi-weekly meetings where people that worked with digital space and insights and business of the digital space would meet and talk about general things, and people would talk and they would just sit there with their assumptions about the customers, and I would like feel how it's like, turmoil inside of me. I have insights. I know. You don't know. This is just assumptions. And I think like a few times there I actually got like flustered, and I would, in my tonality, try to like, no, these are the customer insights. I know, we've done this project, sort of thing. And I learned the hard way that you can't just like push it down people's throat. It won't work. But it's such a simple thing, but really, that's just it. You need to find other ways. People got other stuff to do.
Yeah, so they ignore you, or what happened?
No, I just think that I guess it was, I got some feedback that maybe my approach should be a bit softer if I wanted to make a good impression on people I didn't know. But it goes with my personality as well, of being quite brave and outspoken. So it's finding that balance in that.
Yeah, I'm curious about that, because if you are, like, if that's your character, like how far do you go navigating the corporate politics, and like, I don't know, how do you find that balance?
I think what I've learned is that there's other ways. It does that, like,
other than what?
There are other ways of impacting and making people use the insights, for example, then, rather than pushing it on them.
Telling them about it.
Yeah,
trying
exactly.
to convince them. Is that?
Yeah,
I'm putting words in your mouth. Yeah.
No, but that's great. I need it. but it's the activism doesn't always help. It makes because you're also putting people on the spot. when you come with this. So, if we take the example of customer insights, you sort of put them on the spot. Oh, you didn't know this? Like there's a conflict and friction in that. So how can you sort of,
Have you felt like an activist inside the organization?
Sometimes, because I haven't been that interested. I haven't been so drawn to the business perspective more than just understanding it. But I think I've learned with experience also to understand that I need to create stuff that brings value in the form of money to the company. Yeah, but it's also understanding their needs in a different way.
Yeah, it has to. Yeah. James, is there still an activist alive inside of you?
Very good question to ask. I'm not sure I'm the activist mentality. I think I'm a little bit more of a peacemaker overall. I've always been like that. Yeah, it's a great word. I'm really glad that you brought activist. I think that's an amazing way to think of it. I think that maybe that is sometimes where we get into trouble if we kind of see an us and them kind of mindset. It can be easy to think that way, and that's where I see maybe people have burnt themselves out when they do those things. But yeah, we don't want to lose that, because I think we are bringing such great things to these organizations. But that's where we actually, in our session, what we talked about was like this soft and hard influence. You need that hard influence on a project because you're trying to move the needle, you're trying to move the numbers, you need people to pay attention to certain things. So that's where you have that hard influence. But the soft influence, that kind of more gentle activism, maybe is the long-term mission. I think that's a positive that we bring over time. So in answer to the question, yeah, I guess I am an activist, but I'm taking my time over it.
It's this is another thing that sort of they don't teach you in service design school, the fact that you need to be an implicit role model for, or model certain behavior or certain values. And like, if you aren't aware of that, then you might break things accidentally. If you are aware of it, like it can feel as an additional burden. Like, this isn't what I've been hired to do. Like, this isn't my job. It wasn't on my resume to sort of model how collaboration and cross silo functioning should work. I don't know. Do you experience that as a burden, James?
I'm not sure it's a burden, but I think it's something you want to be aware of. I think it's less of a burden if you can live it.
How do we live it?
So I remember I was asked to talk about DEI at my previous organization, and I kind of had this realization that we live some of those values every time we show up as service designers, because we source different voices and opinions and we bring those forward, and we do make those opportunities for people to talk and communicate and listen to with respect. We're living that all the time. So if we necessarily were to turn up and advocate for those things, that could be a burden. But if you can turn up and show those things and show people the path to doing that, that can actually become part of the culture of that organization. Hey, we don't do this without speaking to people. We don't make decisions without listening to the people that we're making decisions about. So we design with rather than for. So it becomes a lot less burdensome when you're able to actually just live those values and have other people start to do it, rather than taking it upon yourself to make people do those things.
And that requires that you are quite aware of what those values are, and that's an important part of your identity to sort of bring those to the table quite explicitly, right, James?
Yeah, I think having a clear view of your principles, and those should be based on the value that you can bring specifically as well as designers. So yeah, having those conversations within your teams. What are our principles? How do we show up? What value are we adding? I think if you have those conversations and you kind of make that almost part of your team charter, that's really important.
That's super important. Yeah, we haven't talked about that too much. Would be a very interesting dinner table conversation as well. Linn, building up on what James said about knowing our values and living them and sort of being the role model by just being you. if you look back at, or maybe around you, at the people who you sort of admire, who you feel do good work within maybe the organization as within service design, what do you see as their, I don't know, top 3 skills? What do they have that you feel every service designer should strive to have?
So generalizing soft skills.
Be more specific.
Like,
And I'm not letting you get away with that.
No, shoot. The capability of maybe, I think, patience. Like patience with people and process, like that sort of soft skill, if it's a soft skill. But and then also negotiation. It sounds so like, but yeah, being able to negotiate and find a way, sort of. But then maybe also engaging people, like just making it interesting, whether it's whatever tool you use for that, but storytelling and adjusting to your audience, so to speak.
Have you proactively and consciously built your negotiation skills?
I need to get better at that. That's the activist thing, right? The balance of not trying to push, but rather. But I have, similar to what James talked about, I have a role model in my digital sales lead. He's great at negotiating. I just follow his lead. He's not a service designer, but like I take from him. He's super interested in the business and the numbers, and we collaborate in a good way. But I learn a lot from him in negotiating in business. And
that's super interesting that you mentioned this, because already in this conversation, you talked about group dynamics. Now we're talking about negotiation and learning from sales. I already mentioned that in the other dinner table conversation, we talked about improv and comedy as a field where we can get inspiration from. James, what else is out there that we should be paying attention to and learning from?
Oh, wow. You've covered so many already. Maybe you didn't mention did you mention selling?
Well,
negotiation?
as for negotiation, yeah, sales is a very interesting area, right?
Yeah, I think that's a huge one. And I mentioned that earlier, so sorry to come back to that. But yeah, I think similar to Linn, role models, people around me, great at selling their perspective. I guess closing the deal as well. Yeah. Really, really kind of getting something over the finish line, getting people to commit to it. Really asking people to like, okay, so we're good with this. We're going to go forward. Let's actually get that budget locked down. Let's go.
Yeah. No, I wish more service design professionals would team up with salespeople. I think it would be a very interesting combination for both ends, by the way. James, we're sort of heading towards the end of the conversation, and I'm always curious, like, when you are in this role, you're always delivering change, as I mentioned earlier. You're always pushing against the status quo. You're always going to meet resistance. You're innovating. How do you stay motivated? How do you keep going?
Yeah, I think the people around you, I think is the most important. So you want to get that kind of energy, that spark from other people that are challenging you, asking questions of you, inspiring you. And obviously that's much easier when you have a team around you. So that's what I'm excited about in my new role is having more people that get what I do and are bringing new things to the table. So that's really important where I'm at now, is having that new team. My previous role, I didn't necessarily have that. So that was a lot where I got that from the circle in many regards, many respects, having those kind of conversations. But I think also that long term, we talked about it as well. So actually within your organization, reflecting, making sure you're paying attention to those long term behavioral shifts, mindset changes. If you stop to look and you go, wow, people are talking about this and they never were before. Like the language has changed, the process has changed. I think if you're able to look up from your individual projects and the results and just look at those as well, that's often inspiring for you to keep you motivated to keep going.
And with those kind of changes that take a long time, which they often do in the work that we tend to do, is you need a way to track them, maybe I've said it more often, keep a journal, like journal weekly on what you're seeing. And then like in the circle, we have a travel journal, which is quite interesting because in December, you really don't know what we discussed in February. And the same goes with your work. Like describe your situation at work. What are people talking about? What do you see? And then at the end of the year, reflect on that. And I think you'll be surprised, hopefully in a positive way, that things are moving forward. But on a day-to-day basis, like it's so hard to notice, right?
It is, yeah. I think that's where if you ever get an opportunity, and it's can be better if there's an external force here, but if you get an opportunity to build a case study, short, easy case studies, I guess it almost sounds like a journal, like you talked about, Mark. So recently in the past year or so, I've had multiple opportunities where people have asked me like to reflect back on something or build a story around what I've done, and those moments were so amazing to actually stop and build that 3-4 slide story that just explains some of that. You can kind of take that away and you start stacking those up, and you can start to see the movement.
Linn, you're back at work after I would disqualify it if I would say it was a break. You were very hard at work, but with a different occupation in the last 12 months. You're back in your other job. I don't know if you have motivational issues at the moment, but in general, what keeps you going and motivated?
First of all, I got more motivated than I thought I would be coming back to work, because a lot of people said that they missed me
that's
and
nice.
They missed my work. And there was a lot of things that had been said like, oh, we can deal with that when Linn gets back. I still don't know necessarily what it is, but it's a Linn thing, it's probably some service design work. But I think I get motivated with the people that I work with. Like our digital sales lead and I are great team, and we progress and we do things together, and that makes it fun. So easy and fun, and we like navigate the hardship together in a sense. So I think that's what motivated me. And then it's like, I think initially when I started with design, you wanted to change the world, but I am changing the world, but it's just tiny bits within this organization, within this insurance company somewhere in the Nordics. Maybe not so much to brag about, but I can see the change that I'm making, and I that makes me motivated enough for now, because life is bigger than just work for me right now. So,
and you have to embrace those quote unquote small wins. You have to celebrate them, because that is it. Like for most of us, that's going to be it, and that's great. Yes. And we should like it. It doesn't have to be grandiose. We don't have to build the next. Well, you name it. And celebrating those wins is, I think, really important. Recognizing them, like James, you already mentioned, having people around you who can celebrate with you and sort of guide you through those hardships. Yeah, I think that's key. Any final words of wisdom, James? Is there anything you feel we should have addressed that we haven't done so far?
No, I think the overall message is keep going on your longer, bigger mission. Pay attention to, of course, your projects and influencing people around you and the way you work in projects. But yeah, don't lose sight of the fact that you're creating some really good change, like Linn said, in your organizations, which then goes out into the world.
And you, Linn, anything to add as a final comment? Maybe a question?
No questions, but I've always felt a bit shameful that my strength is my soft skills and not my hard skills. Maybe I've been hanging around with too many UX and UI designers. But that's something that really mirrored me in the last session, is that the soft skills is super good. And I think it's a survival kit in-house.
And if you ever need some affirmation, if that's a word, and evidence, and people who recognize that as well, you're always welcome to join us in the circle. You'll find more people who sort of see the value of what you do and around your soft skills. So yeah, do join us if you want. James and Linn, first of all, thanks for coming on the show, sharing your insights, your stories with us. I think it's so important to get these stories out there, to sort of do a reality check of what it's like the wins, the failures, the tears, and the smiles maybe of doing service design, and in this case, especially in-house. Thank you for being awesome community members, giving back to the community, bringing in your experience, lived experiences, because that's what we are looking for. I hope that you'll be with us for a very long time, but today, this marks the end of our episode. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Linn and James, and that you're taking away some valuable insights you can apply to your own work. If their stories, experiences, and perhaps those in-house realities we talked about resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment on this episode, and you can do so on Spotify and YouTube. And if this conversation has sparked or perhaps even amplified your desire to connect with other in-house service design professionals for those kinds of conversations that challenge your thinking and support you on your own journey, then I'd love to welcome you in the Circle community. In the Circle, you'll connect with a passionate group of smart, generous, and like-minded professionals. We meet regularly to share our wins, our failures, and yes, those hard-earned lessons. It's all about pushing each other forward and offering encouragement where needed. To learn more about the Circle and how you can join us, head over to servicedesignshow.com/circle. And of course, you'll find the link in the show notes of this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Service Design Show. My name is Mark Fontijn. Take care and see you soon.